messages pop up for you as well. Okay, so once again, so that's me up on the top left, and then Miss Amanda Amirati is the coordinator of the office. That means that she handles the administrative side of things. She handles all the paperwork, she handles registration, and she checks whether students are able to qualify for the program and offer advising and whatnot. So, okay, and then on the bottom there, we have our two peer advisors, Omar, who is on the call with us today. As I said, he is in the College of Sciences. Excuse me, my dog. I will be right back. Oops. Hey, Ronan, shush.
Hello?
Okay, we'll take care of that. So on the bottom there, we have the two peer advisors. We have Omar and Abigail Reynolds. Abby is a political science major, so she's also in the College of Sciences, but more of the arts and humanities side. And our peer advisors offer one-on-one advising for students who want to join the program, for students who are already in the program. They answer questions, they can sort of shepherd you through some of the more common questions and troubles and that sort of a thing. So UCF actually offers several programs, several opportunities for you to get started in research. I don't know how many of you already are doing some kind of research or have considered doing research, but here are some of these opportunities. The Office of Undergraduate Research, which is the campus-wide office for undergraduate research at UCF, runs a couple of programs that are open to everybody. One is the Summer Research Academy, which, as the name implies, is run in the summer. It's a 3-day course. It is run very intensively, and it's an introduction to research at UCF. Everything from how to find a faculty member to work with, to what kinds of programs exist at UCF, to how to make the most of your research experience. Then they also offer Intro, which is a course in which you enroll. It's only 1 credit each semester, but it's 2 semesters of workshops, of seminars, where you get to actually meet people from across campus who tell you about their program, their offices. We usually have a presentation in that course as well, and in SRA, the Summer Research Academy, of course. And there's a faculty member who teaches this and who helps you get started actually in research. Some more specialized programs are on the right, and that's McNair and RAMP, which is run out of the Academic Advancement Program Office, or AAP. McNair is for students who are first generation or low income, underrepresented minorities who intend to receive a PhD in their chosen field. So you have to qualify based on those characteristics for the program, and you have to commit essentially to going to graduate school, and not just graduate school, but a doctoral degree straight after your undergraduate program. RAMP is a little bit broader. It's research and mentoring program. That's what RAMP stands for. And it's for anybody who's interested in graduate school. So that program helps you to connect with a faculty member and gives you some other opportunities for mentoring and for development of your research skills. And it's very important to know as well that there's some financial support in both McNair and RAMP, which for many students can make the difference, right? Can mean the difference between being able to do research as opposed to having to work and not be able to do research. And then finally, on the bottom right there is our program, the Honors Undergraduate Thesis program, which is also a more restricted program because you have to qualify to enter the program. And I'm going to talk about the criteria that make you eligible to join the program in a minute. So in a nutshell, what our program is that it allows undergraduates just like you to participate in original and independent research or creative activity as sort of the principal, what we call principal investigators and scholars. So what does that mean? Excuse me, is that unlike courses that you have taken so far, right, in which you were given assignments by the professor who set kind of the parameters of what the expectations were and when you were expected to do certain things and how you were expected to carry out the work. When you write a thesis and when you're doing original research or scholarly activity, you are the one who are really crafting, right, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and what the end product should look like. And that is really what sets the honors thesis apart as far as research goes, as far as any undergraduate experience goes, is that you are the driver of what your experience is, right? That's what the principal part of it means. Originality means that it has to be something that hasn't been done before. You may have written research papers in some of your courses, and typically what that means in the context of a course and of a term paper is that you do research, you read up on what other people, other scholars have written about your topic, right? So there are different schools of thought, there are different arguments, sometimes there are some very spirited debates, and your job when you're writing a research paper is to find out about all these different approaches to that question and excuse me, and to report on. Why am I muted? To come to a conclusion about what the sort of the most convincing answer is. But in a thesis, on the other hand, you do all of that, right? You have to know what other people have written. You have to know what established scholars in your field have done and have written about. However, you have to go one step further. And that's where the originality piece comes in, which means that you say, okay, what has not been done, right? What question has not been answered? If it's a creative project, what is something new that I can bring to the table in this documentary, in this advertising campaign, or in whatever kind of project you're doing? So it represents your own contribution. And independent, I explained that before, that you are taking the lead rather than your faculty member sort of directing you every step of the way. Although I have to say that you do work with faculty members and they do provide supervision and guidance as you need. So structurally speaking, the details of it are that the program is a 2 to 4 semester program. It's for juniors and seniors because you need a certain number of credits and upper level credits specifically to be able to qualify. It's open to all UCF students, which means that even though you may not be part of the Burnett Honors College now, I mentioned at the beginning, my office is part of the Burnett Honors College, but even though you may not have joined the Burnett Honors College as a freshman, as an FTIC, this is your opportunity now to join that community of scholars, right? And to graduate from UCF with the honors distinction by doing research and by writing a thesis. So essentially the task during those 2 to 4 semesters is for you to do research. You write, you defend, and you publish an original honors thesis in any discipline. That can be your major, that can be your minor, that can be a discipline that you're interested in that is maybe close to what you're majoring in, but not exactly what that is, right? And that thesis is published through the university library and it's published online. It is available to researchers worldwide because of the existence of electronic databases. And just so you can see what that looks like, this is how many times UCF undergraduates' honors theses have been downloaded since 2015. So you can see that your work or the work of your peers, oops, went a little too fast there, the work of your peers or those who have come before you is being read and downloaded across the world, and that it really is making an impact. And if and when you do decide to write a thesis, you will have your own personal dashboard. So you will be able to track where your thesis is being read and who is reading it. And by who I mean, you won't have names or anything, but you'll have location. So for example, I had a student who wrote a thesis, graduated a couple of semesters, actually a couple of years now, I guess, ago. And he came to my office all excited one time. He was a veteran, and he had written a thesis about the mental health of veterans after they return to the United States. And somebody at the US Senate had downloaded his thesis. So he was all excited about that. And so that is the kind of information, and that's the kind of stats that you can get from that dashboard that called STARS. So how do you qualify to join the program? I mentioned that it's a program that you have to qualify for, that you have to be eligible for, and this is what makes you eligible for it. You have to have 60 completed credits overall, which means at least junior standing. And my understanding is that for you to have even been invited to this information session today, Nicholson Advising knows that you meet these criteria or are close to meeting them. So you must have 60 completed credits overall, and at least 12 of those must be upper division, which means 3,000 to 4,000 level. You must have at least a 3.4 UCF or overall GPA. So for those of you who started at UCF, your overall and UCF GPA are the same. For you, those of you who are transfer students, they may be a little bit different, and we take the higher of the two GPAs. And you must have at least 2 semesters remaining before you graduate from UCF. And that's because the program is at least 2 semesters long, right? So let's take a look at what kind of research current students are doing, or recent students have done. You will notice that the research topics are really super diverse. They are really remarkable. There are some questions there. There are some theses there that I'm like, wow, how did the student even think of this, right? And how did they go about answering these questions? Just like our student body. Our students come from all walks of life, from all over the place, and their research interests reflect that. These are some theses from the Nicholson School that are fairly recent, right? So hopefully you see a thesis from your particular major there. The first one is Radio versus Streaming Services, exploring how radio is facing competition. Lights, Camera, Action, that looks like a film. Thesis, The Journey of the Entrepreneur, and I'm not quite sure what field that is, but the student was a Nicholson School major. And Don't Worry, a personal documentary. So this student actually made a documentary, and this is one of the options that I'll talk about today, is that you, as students in fields that are very creative in nature, who are preparing to go and do some very applied things, you have that option to tailor your thesis to that sort of work right now. So this student actually made a documentary about her grandmother. Storms Named After People, no idea what that one's about. Understanding news media. So you can see that there are all disciplines and all kinds of topics there. And hopefully you can think of something that is super interesting to you that you will want to delve into and study for at least 2 semesters. So you may be tempted to think that with a thesis, it has to be this huge undertaking, right? This huge question. You have to solve the problems of the world. You have to figure out how to, I don't know, save movie theaters, or what is the future of streaming? What's the next big thing, or something like that. Although it would be nice if somebody could cure cancer or something like that. Omar is actually working on some research having to do with HIV, and I'm sure we all would love for him to put an end to things, to disease. That is not really what's required of you. We understand that 2 semesters is not a long time, and this, for many students, represents their first attempt, their first exposure to sort of this idea of original and independent research. So what we're looking for you to do is for you to demonstrate mastery of your discipline, right? And for you to show that you're capable of independent work. So it doesn't need to be the next blockbuster, right? If you're doing a documentary or a movie, it doesn't need to be the advertising campaign that everybody just stops in their tracks and says, oh my gosh, I need to run by this product or something like that. It just needs to show that you understand what advertising is and how it works, and people's psychology, right? So we have a couple of options for you to approach this. One is what we call the honors in the major thesis. And this is when you work with a professor in your department, in your major, right? And your research or your creative project is in your major as well. So if you are a film major, you are working with a professor in the film department, and your research or your creative work has to do with film. If you are a video game, I don't know, video game major, I don't know if that's what it's called, but then you work with somebody in that department, and you work on either analyzing an existing video game or techniques having to do with writing video games, or maybe you write something, who knows. Then we have the honors interdisciplinary thesis. So we realized that, honors in the major has been around for about 30 years. And we realized that for a lot of students, although I'm sure they love their major, sometimes they want to do their research don't fall neatly into the boundaries of their major, right? A lot of research, a lot of questions, a lot of the things that we are very curious about are in either disciplines that are sort of adjacent to what we major in, or they happen to be just interdisciplinary, right? They blur the boundaries, or sometimes they're just in another discipline altogether. And so we introduced in 2019, so it has been 2 years now, spring 2019, we introduced the honors interdisciplinary thesis. So in this option, you are able to work with a professor from any department, and you can write a thesis in any discipline of your choice. And for you, Nicholson School students, you also have the option of creating something creative, what we call the creative project, right? Of creating something, and that becomes the basis for your honors thesis. So you will have the product itself. So you have the film or the advertising campaign, you have a video game, and then you will write a paper talking about the process of making that creative project, of working on that creative project. For you to take advantage of this option, you have to petition your Honors Undergraduate Thesis faculty liaison to be able to use the project for your honors thesis. And right now, this faculty liaison is Dr. Melissa Dodd. And she's able to look at your grade, at your proposed project. And oftentimes it can be something that you have done in a class already and you want to expand on it. So that is a great opportunity for you to sort of continue beyond one semester the work that you had already started. And the paper that we're expecting is a critical analysis. It's not just to say, oh, well, I wanted to do a documentary, and so I went and looked for somebody, and then this is how I found the person, and then this is how I shot the documentary, and I'm really pleased with the product. That's not a thesis, right? What we're looking for is what we call a critical analysis, where you are bringing sort of a theoretical lens about why did you choose that particular topic? Why did you choose? What informed the techniques that you used, right? What goals were you trying to achieve? So it represents much deeper thought than just telling us about the process, okay? What goals did you want to achieve? And do you feel that you achieved your goals? That's very important. In any kind of research endeavor, in any kind of creative endeavor, we want to create something. We have a vision of where we want to go, of what we want it to look like or feel like. And then at the end, we want you to pause and think, did I achieve that? Did it achieve the goal that I wanted for myself, right? So that's what the creative option is for you. And it's a fantastic opportunity, once again, to use something that you may have already started in one of your courses and that you can petition to use as the basis for your honors thesis. So how is it structured? I mentioned that it's a 2 to 4 semester program. The minimum is 2 semesters, and these in yellow there at the top, those are the 2 required courses. One's are directed readings, and the second course is the thesis. In the directed readings part, students sort of set out to lay the groundwork for the thesis. This is where you explore a question. Typically, you have to narrow it down because everybody starts out with this gigantic question and then they start reading about it and they're like, whoa, there's so much to do about this. And then you narrow it down to what you're going to answer, to what you're going to do, right? And you write a proposal. That is the deliverable, that is the product that we expect and that the committee that you will be working with will expect as well. So this course is 3 credits, it's required, and the thesis course is also 3 credits, it's also required. The thesis semester is when you actually carry out the research, when you actually carry out the creative project, and at the end of it, the deliverable is, of course, the thesis itself, which tends to be a work that is longer and more substantive than anything you would create for a course. Now, if you encounter any kind of obstacle or something like that, you may choose to take an extra semester of directed readings, right? Maybe you say, well, I need a little more time to polish this proposal, or maybe to figure out exactly what or how I want to do this research or this project. You can take directed readings too, that's optional. It's 1 or 3 credits. And the same with the thesis course. You can take thesis 2, 1 or 3 credits. So it is credit bearing and it has to be part of your academic planning in terms of your credits, overall credits, okay? And the creative option that I mentioned before and some other courses that I will mention later allow you to actually substitute other courses for the directed readings. So you can use coursework in the Nicholson School that's already in your major and on your transcript to count for the directed readings, as long as you can produce a proposal that is approved by a faculty member. So is there a question in the chat here? It looks like it. Yeah, if this is your final semester, you wouldn't be able to unless you wanted to extend for 1 semester, because you need a minimum of 2 semesters. Yes. Oh, thank you for that question, Adriana. Actually, yes, summer does count. You can start and finish in any term at UCF. You can start in the spring, finish in the summer. You can start in the spring, take a break over the summer, finish in the fall. You can start in the fall, finish in the spring. You can start in the fall, enroll in the spring, take an extra semester in the summer, any of the above combinations. And if you really need to take a semester off because let's say you have a full slate of courses that you have to take because they're only offered at that time or something like that, we do allow you to take a semester off. We don't recommend it because it's a little bit hard after 3 months or 6 months, you know, if you throw in summer or something like that, to sort of mentally get back into the swing of things, but you do have the opportunity. So Karine, you're asking, does this not follow this usual semester timeline? Well, yes and no. I mean, we start with the dates that UCF offers, but you don't have to start in the fall and end in the spring or anything like that. Does that make sense? You can start and finish in any semester, as I mentioned before. So did I miss any other questions before? Okay, it doesn't look like it. So I'm going to keep going. And you're welcome, Adriana. So, and the really neat thing is, and I'm sure Rebecca can talk a little bit about this at the end, is that your coursework may actually be used to count towards your major requirements. So these courses that carry the honors, I guess, label, you could say, they're honors courses. We create them, we enroll you in them, but they are in your major. So if you're a film major, they are sort of film 4970, right? So working with the Nicholson School of Communications advisor, you can determine whether that course can count towards your major requirements, towards graduation requirement, right? It can count as an elective. And I'm going to stop right there and allow advisors to talk about this. Okay. So I talked about substitutes for the directed readings. There are 4 courses that have been approved for Nicholson School students to take in in lieu of of the directed reading scores, which is something that we would create normally for them. So these are the courses, and if you are taking them, you can petition to have them count as the directed reading scores. So if you are taking them and you have a project going, if you have a research question already, that sort of a thing, you can absolutely count that instead of taking an additional course. That's really the benefit there, is that you already have this on your transcript. You don't have to take an additional 3-credit course. Okay, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. So I mentioned that you would be working with faculty, and typically you have a thesis chair and at least one other committee member. So your thesis chair has to be tenured or tenure track, and those titles are assistant, associate, or full professor, or have the lecturer title. That means they're not on the tenure track, but they have to have a terminal degree in their discipline and be a subject matter expert in the discipline and in the topic about which you will be writing your thesis. Okay, so those are the requirements there for for faculty who are your thesis chairs. Now, for the second committee member, there's a little bit more flexibility, but they have to be at UCF, and you can choose other members of your committee as well. You can add other people. For example, if you know somebody in the let's say in the advertising world that you think would be a great addition, would give sort of some hands-on expertise to your thesis, by all means, you can add them. Just keep in mind that the more people you add to your committee, the harder it becomes to have everybody agree, right, when it's ready to go, when to schedule a defense, sign off on your paperwork, that sort of a thing. So we usually advise students to, you know, consult with others and have them give you advice, but keep your actual formal committee to a minimum. So there are 2 different ways you can find faculty to work with. And I'm happy to talk a little bit more about the resources that we offer as well to help you. But the first way is for you to approach a faculty member and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I'm interested in doing research and in writing a thesis. Do you have a project that I can join, on which I can help, and then carve out a little place for myself, right? That happens a lot in what we call the hard sciences, where students join a lab, right? Biomedical sciences, chemistry, biology, engineering, those sorts of things. That happens very often where faculty have projects that are existing and students join that lab, they learn the techniques, and then they take ownership of one part of the project. It can also happen in your case though, right? You have faculty who are doing research. Sometimes there's a big umbrella for that research project, and you could actually take the lead on one part of that project and make that your thesis, as well as contributing to the faculty's overall research agenda. The next path is for you as a student to already have a question in mind, to already have a project in mind. You know what you're interested in. You have taken a class maybe that, you know, really sort of sparked your interest, and you read a book in one particular course that you were like, you know what, that's something that I would really like to find out a little bit more about, that sort of a thing. And so with that in mind, you take your idea, you approach a faculty member, you've already decided, okay, well, perhaps the instructor of that course might be somebody who's a good idea to work with. Or you can look on your department's website to say, okay, well, given that I have this interest, who might be a good person for me to work with on this, right? And so armed with your idea and your project, you approach a faculty member and say, I would like to write a thesis. These are my ideas. This is my interest. Are you willing to supervise me? So there are different ways to find faculty members to work with, but just remember that you have to have a faculty mentor to start an honors thesis. So nearing the end here, we've talked about the how you get in and how it's structured and that sort of a thing, what others have done. So why should you, right, current Nicholson School students consider doing an honors thesis? Here are some of the benefits, and I don't think we cover everything because there are a lot of I guess you could say, intangible benefits. But these are some of the things that you have access to, that you have the opportunity to access as you join the Honors Undergraduate Thesis program. The first, and I think the most important one, is that you earn the honors distinction on your diploma and your transcript. As I mentioned before, many of you may not have applied to the Honors College when you were joining UCF. And perhaps if you're a transfer student and you were not enrolled in an honors program already at the school from which you came, you did not even have the opportunity, right, to apply to the Burnett Honors College. Well, this is your chance to graduate with honors. And here is why this matters, right? It's not just about, oh, hey, I have honors. Any given year, there are thousands of graduates just from UCF alone, right? And I'm not sure how many graduates there are from the Nicholson School, probably in the hundreds. Do you know how many graduates the Honors College has in any given year? About 500. So 500 students at UCF are graduating with honors in a crowd of thousands of students across UCF and a few hundred. So if you, as a Nicholson School student, have that honors distinction on your diploma, on your transcript, you have written a thesis, you have gone above and beyond, you are setting yourself apart from all those students and from everybody else who does not have that distinction and who will be your competition, right? When you go on the job market, when you're applying to graduate school, when you're showcasing the work that you're able to do. I mentioned that you earn upper level research credit, right? So that's one way to fulfill graduation requirements. Very importantly, you join the Burnett Honors College and you take part of everything that we have to offer. So first of all, you get to be a part of a community of very talented peers, of go-getters, of very motivated and smart students who are going places. So these can become your network, right? It's never too early to start networking. You don't start networking when you're 30 or 40 years old. By then, you should already have built up a significant part of your network. Start now and start with the best and the brightest at UCF. You have premier access to events. So the Burnett Honors College regularly puts on events, everything from social events by the Honors Congress, which is the students' organization, to academic events where we invite renowned scholars, ambassadors, etc., to speak to the students. There are special career fairs for honors students, and so on and so forth. I mean, there are so many of them. You get free printing. We have a computer lab and you get free printing. It's right, the physical college is right in the middle of campus, right across the street from the Student Union, right next to the Trevor Colburn Hall. And you get to print everything you need. You have access to honors scholarships, which are on top of UCF scholarships. And our program, the Honors Undergraduate Thesis program, has its own scholarship process. Plus, the Burnett Honors College offers scholarships, so you can apply for all of those scholarships. And every year, the Burnett Honors College offers about $150,000 in scholarships. So just think what a difference it can make if you can get even a couple $1,000s of those, right? You can enroll in honors courses, the University Honors Program, which offers classes of much smaller size than UCF courses usually are, on a space available basis. That means that if there are spots left after the University Honors students have enrolled, you are able to enroll in that. So instead of being in a 200 student chemistry course or whatever, if you're taking an elective, you can be in a 25 student one, right? You have access to reduced cost poster printing. So for example, if you are accepted to a conference and you have to print a poster, if you were to go to FedEx Kinko's or something like that, you would probably pay about $80, I think. We actually print not even at cost. We actually subsidize the cost of printing, and you only have to pay $30 to print a professional quality, large size poster that you can use at, I hope you have heard of SURE, the Showcase of Undergraduate Research Excellence, which is coming up. It's every year, the last week of March and the first week of April. That's where students at UCF who are engaged in research show their work to the entire campus community. So you can participate in SURE, you can participate in regional conferences, national conferences, and so forth, and have a professional quality poster printed for $30, right? It's amazing. And finally, you can have UCF affiliated housing for honors students. You can live around other honors students as well. So I think some of the great things about doing research and writing an honors thesis really have to do with what it does to you as a student, as a scholar, as an intellectual, as a budding professional in your field, right? So you are probably used to courses where you are given information and then you're given direction on how to do things, what to do, and that sort of a thing. And then you have to work with those confines. And that's fine, because much of life is that, right? We're given tasks and we have to accomplish them. But here is an opportunity for you to be creative, to find something that interests you, to design how you're going to answer that question, or how you're going to go about that creative project, and to really craft something from start to finish. And the kind of personal growth, the intellectual growth that comes from that process of crafting everything yourself and having to figure out how to overcome problems, because everybody does. Everybody runs into unforeseen obstacles. Everybody hits a wall of, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing, or I have no idea where to go from here, or what did I get myself into? But as you overcome these obstacles, as you overcome these times when you just don't know how you're going to go on, you will develop self-confidence and you will become a budding professional, right? You will learn to write better than you were before. You will learn to think deeply, right? You will have to, because you're grappling with some deep questions. You're grappling with what people have done before, have said before, and how you fit into that conversation. So really, you're becoming a scholar, and that's the kind of professional growth that we're talking about here. It's all about the development of your mind, right? You will be a very different kind of student as you go through this program than you were at the beginning of it or before you enrolled in it. And partly because of that, and partly because of what you will have achieved, you will be well prepared for the job market. You will be well prepared if and when you decide to apply to graduate programs. Again, I mentioned you will set yourself apart from other candidates who may not have written an honors thesis. You will have the skills that you have developed as you wrote the thesis. So to get started, you submit the eligibility form. If you're interested in applying for the summer, you can start this summer. The deadline is April 16th, so you still have about a month, right? If you have plans for the summer, or you just don't want to work on this in the summer, you want some time to sort of set your committee together and that sort of a thing, you can start in the fall. The deadline to apply for the fall is July 30th. And this is the website where you apply. Okay, this is the link there, tinyurl.com/hut-apply. You can also, and once you apply, you will be, your credentials will be checked. I mentioned Miss Amanda Amirati is the coordinator. She will verify that you meet all the qualifications that I mentioned before, the number of credits, the upper level credits, et cetera, et cetera. And your job then, if you're found eligible, is to find a faculty member who is willing and able to work with you. You can also meet with one of our peer advisor, Omar or Abby, to discuss any questions that you may have. And they can also give you some ideas for how to identify a thesis chair. And we always advise students, talk to an academic advisor, figure out how and whether this program fits into your academic plan, right? If you can fit the credits, because it is a credit bearing program, if those credits can count towards your major, towards graduation, and that sort of a thing. And finally, we will send you, if you're found eligible, we will send you an admission agreement and a registration form. Once you have identified a faculty member, you will complete that and submit that to our office. And we will actually create your course and register you for it. You don't have to do a thing. So this is how you get in touch with us, honorsresearch@ucf.edu. And our website is honors.ucf.edu/research. Our office is open this semester, but we are doing all our operations, if you will, remotely, like this information session, for example. And so we encourage you to email us, or there's also a request for contact form on our website. So that is all I have today. And so I'm going to stop sharing, and let me see, are there questions in the chat that I can answer? And then I will actually ask Omar to share a few words about your experience, Omar, and answer any questions there. And then maybe Rebecca would like to add a few things from the advising standpoint, the credits. I know students always ask about the credits. Rebecca, that would be very helpful. Omar, take it away.
Okay, hi everyone. Like Dr. Waldron said, my name is Omar. I'm one of the peer advisors here at the Office of Honors Research. I'm also, of course, doing my thesis. I'm doing my thesis in chemistry. Um, like Dr. Waldron said, my thesis works on it works with HIV. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to cure HIV, although I would love to. Um, it works on developing a low resource, low cost test for HIV that can be used on multiple subtypes. So it's a type of test that can be implemented in low resource areas like Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, to where they might not have access to high level labs like we do here in the States, so that they are able to more effectively test for HIV. I started the program 1 year ago, actually, in spring of 2020. Um, it's been a great experience. I have grown a lot throughout it. I have become more confident in my, independence as a researcher and myself as, in my future career and in what I want to do in the future. I think that if for anyone who wants to do this program, it is an absolutely wonderful opportunity for you to get experience with research, but also to just grow individually. Um, I was applying for sorry, hold on, wait. Give me one moment. Okay, sorry. So I was recently applying for a fellowship, and one of the things that the fellowship asked for was we want to see a high degree of independence. Um, we want to see a high degree of independence in research, and so that's one thing that they were looking for is the Honors Undergraduate Thesis program exemplifies that you are an independent researcher and that you kind of came up with your idea and you guided yourself, and that's something that's very important to future graduate schools or even future employers. So yeah, that's my take on it. So if anyone has any questions for me from the student perspective, I'm happy to answer any of them. You can just unmute yourself or type them in the chat.
Omar, how did you go about finding a faculty member to guide your research?
Oh yeah, so good question. So I actually started in research before I started the program. So I think it was so about a year before I started the program. Actually, I was already doing research. Which does not mean that you can't start them at the same time. It's just my certain situation that I was in research beforehand. But I kind of was going through, so at that time I was still majoring in chemistry. So I went through the chemistry faculty webpage and I was kind of just looking at the biographies of, the individual professors. I was looking at their journal publications. Obviously, when I was reading the journal publications, I didn't understand everything what they were saying. Actually, most of it I did not understand. I just kind of got the general gist of what they were doing. And so then I emailed them and said, hi, my name is Omar. I'm really interested in starting undergraduate research. I read your work on this and this. You know, I would love to get started in research and, specifically, I would like to work with you and your group. If you have an availability, I would love to talk about this more. Now, that's how I went about it. Um, there are other ways to go about it as well. As Dr. Waldron mentioned, the Office of Undergraduate Research also has a few resources that you can use to try to find other faculty members, but that's typically what most people do. I will say that you won't always get a reply and sometimes it's going to be, it's no, sorry, I don't have any availabilities, but don't be discouraged. I mean, even, it's very common for you to get a no or a not reply, but that doesn't necessarily mean, anything against you. It's just that that faculty member either is busy or, they just don't have an availability or whatever it may, whatever that might mean.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Logan, I would still recommend it even if you don't want to go to graduate school. I mean, it still does show, like I said before, like it shows a high degree of independence and the ability to guide yourself through research. It's still going to look great on your resume or CV when you apply to, you know, any sort of private industry job or any sort of job after you um, finish your undergrad. So I still would recommend it even if you're not going to graduate school. Anyone else?
Hi, I had a question.
Sure.
So I wanted to know, in the process of choosing your research topic,
hmm
I'm sure some kids probably stumbled upon like finding a topic and then it suddenly not resonating with them. Are you able to choose it, like switch the topic ideas and stuff in
Yes,
between the
absolutely.
process?
Yes, that's actually something that happened to me. It's not exact. I didn't do like a full switch, but you're absolutely allowed to kind of change it up a little bit and kind of narrow it down one way. Research is meant to be like that. Research changes. Research is not, rarely does it happen where we start a project and then it follows through completely exactly how we thought it would be. So that's totally fine for it to be dynamic and for you to, change something. Now, um, I wouldn't recommend like completely doing a complete switch from one topic to something completely unrelated because obviously you're still going to be under your thesis chair and they're going to have expertise in that topic. So you want to stay within what your thesis chair has their expertise in, but you can definitely it's definitely flexible in terms of refining your topic and kind of picking and choosing what to narrow down and what to leave out of your project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
This is a question I saw in the chat. Will we have access to this PowerPoint afterwards?
Yes, Dr. Waldron, would you like to answer that?
Sure, sure. I'm happy to send it to Dr. Dodd and to Rebecca, and please feel free to disseminate it. So I see some. Let me see if there's questions that I can answer here in the chat. So are you saying that instead of directed readings 1 and thesis 1, you may be able to substitute 1 or 2 of the NSCM courses? Okay, so not directed readings 1 and thesis 1, but just directed readings. So those courses that I had on the slide, you can use one of those to substitute for the directed readings course, just the first course. And if you have, but you would be expected to produce a proposal and submit a proposal, and you would need Dr. Dodd's approval to do that. She would check that your proposal was meets honors standards. She would check the grade that you got in the course, and some other things to make sure that you're ready to go. It's not sort of we're trying to keep people out. It's just that to make sure that you are going to be successful, we want to make sure that you have the foundation that you need to be sort of hit the ground running. If you're only taking one semester technically kind of in the program, we want to make sure that you are all set up for success, right? And so you need to have already at that point, then if you want to do that, have identified your thesis chair and somebody to act as your other committee member, and the faculty can help you identify those people. But definitely the thesis chair needs to be ready to go. You can say, hey, I'm interested in doing this, but you need somebody's signature to work on that with you. So I hope that answers that, and we can talk more a little bit later. So yes, somebody asked if you're taking one of those courses, it would not actually be 6 credits. That is correct. So that is one of the really great advantages of that, is that instead of being 6 credits, it ends up being 3 credits if you only take 2 semesters, right? Or if you need to take an extra semester, instead of being 9 credits, it ends up only being 6 credits, right? And that's really helpful for students who, especially if you're nearing the end of your time at UCF, you say, oh my gosh, I have a lot of credits, and you're maybe a little bit worried about excess credits and that sort of a thing. That might be a really attractive option for you. Let's see here. Blah, blah, blah. How do we get them to be our thesis chair? Yeah, you do have to contact them and ask them. You can email them. You can go to the office hours once those are a thing again. And we can help you identify a few people if you need help sort of getting started. Let's see, how do you actually apply to this or enroll in it? So I hope you got the link there at the end. We talked about it. It's tinyurl.com/hut-apply. And maybe Omar, you can type that in the chat while I'll scroll down. Yes, I will send the PowerPoint. Do we need 12 courses? Oh, heavens, no. It's 6 credits to 12 credits. So it's 2 courses to 4 courses, depending on how much time you take. So you have some control over this, right? We find that the average of courses that students take is 3. So 3 semesters seems to be on average what students need to finish an honors thesis, is what we have found. In the form, it asks the thesis major. So that would be the discipline in which you are writing the thesis. So if you're a film major and you want to do your thesis in film, then you would write film. Do we have to produce a creative option and a thesis, or is it possible to write just a thesis? No, you don't have to do both. If you would like to write a thesis, more of a traditional thesis where you ask a question and you answer it, you absolutely have that option. The creative option is an additional, right? Is an additional option that you have, because I know that a lot of you are in disciplines or in fields where you do creative things, right? Where you do films, you do documentaries, you write video games, you do advertising campaigns. So this is an opportunity for you to actually build on the things that you're doing and use that as a springboard for your thesis. Let's see here. What else? How are the directed readings determined? Do you mean like, what do you read, Stuart? If that's the case, then that is something that you would, well, we offer you some resources. So we connect you with librarians in your subject discipline. They're called subject librarians. And your thesis chair will offer you some guidance as well. And of course, since this is an independent project, you would also take some initiative there and sort of figure out, okay, what has been done, what has been said, and do that. Let's see. No, we do not substitute directed independent study for directed readings, unfortunately. There are approved substitutes, and those are the courses that I talked about. Madison. The proposed thesis chair, yes, that's the faculty mentor. If you have somebody in mind, you would put them on that line. If you don't have anybody in mind, just leave it blank. Okay. Do you have to have already an idea of what you want research to do? So that's a really good question. You don't have to have an idea of what you want to do when you first apply, right? That link that we're giving you, which is the eligibility check. By the way, the eligibility check is not a commitment to the program. I should have made that clear. It is not saying, hey, I want to enroll. This is just your opportunity to say, hey, I'm interested in the program, in potentially enrolling. And this is this is a chance for us to make sure that you qualify. And then once you receive that decision, that's when you really make up your mind. Okay, this is something I want to pursue. Let me take the next step and go talk to faculty. Okay, so most students, I don't know, many students, I will say, I don't know about most students, but many students at this point, they may not know exactly what they want to research. Maybe they have a vague idea of, I'm really interested in XYZ topic. But that's partly what the faculty do, right? They help you to narrow it down. They help you to zero in on something that's doable, on something that is a real contribution, and something perhaps that aligns with what your career goals are, right? That's part of the guidance that your faculty mentor will offer you, okay? So it's great if you have an idea. It's also okay if you don't. That's the takeaway here. Okay, but by the time you enroll, you do have to have somebody to work with, and they will most likely want you to have an idea what you want to work on, right? So you have to have some conversations with them beforehand. Will we be sent another email invite if we don't qualify now? If you're still at UCF and you still meet the qualifications, absolutely, I'm sure. And so now I'm going to turn the time over actually to Rebecca and to Dr. Dodd to add some things. And I'm just going to answer the questions in the chat, not verbally, because I'm sure there are things about credits that need to be said. And I know Dr. Dodd has things to say about the faculty in the Nicholson School. So thank you for your attention. And again, post questions in the chat. I'll be answering there, okay? Thank you. And thank you, Omar.
Yes, actually, Dr. Waldron, very quickly, should we talk about like conditional acceptance? Because I know a lot of people are saying, we're talking about credits. So I just want to put it out there that if you don't meet the, for example, the 12 upper division credits right now, like let's say you've only taken nine credits so far, but let's say you're taking, 6 upper division credits this semester. Obviously, they haven't been completed, so they don't count it yet. They don't count yet. You can still apply for the summer, and we'll issue you a conditional acceptance, which is basically as long as you successfully complete the upper division electives that you're taking this semester, you will be eligible to start that semester. So I just want to put that out there.
Great point, Omar. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll just answer this last question because I know there's a lot of group work that goes on probably in the Nicholson School, is that no, we do not accept group projects. That is one thing, that a thesis is a one-on-one project. So whether you're working, whether the thesis is a first project that you're coming up with, or you're using a project that you've already done in a course, it needs to be your project that you work with one faculty member. So no group projects. All right. So either Dr. Dodd or Rebecca, I'm going to mute myself now.
Hi. So Rebecca, I hope you don't mind if I go ahead and take over, because our first faculty member is here to join us, and I'm going to go ahead and just give you all a broad overview of the Nicholson School areas and the faculty research, and then we will have 3 faculty from each of those areas, possibly 4 actually, joining us to talk just a little bit about their experiences advising the Honors Undergraduate Thesis, their areas of research, and so on and so forth. So if you didn't see me wave, I'm Dr. Melissa Dodd. I am your Honors Undergraduate Thesis liaison with the Nicholson School. So as Penny mentioned, if you wanted to substitute those directed readings, then I would be the one that you would contact about that, as well as Rebecca, of course. And so the Nicholson School then has 3 major overarching program areas, as I'm sure you all are aware. We have communication, we have film and mass media, and we have games and interactive media. So those are the 3 broad areas. The faculty within those areas, as Omar was sharing about, finding a faculty, going through faculty profiles, we have so many faculty who cover so much diverse research, and it's all just really super interesting. So I just put together some short blurbs about some of the research that I'm just gonna kind of start. Apologies for kind of reading these off as a list, but I think that if you hear something of interest, then you might want to follow up with that. So the communication area includes advertising, public relations, human communication, and communication and conflict. With these areas, we have faculty who study activist communication. We have studies who study corporate social responsibility. So what is the responsibility of business to society? We have health messages, social justice issues, and health disparities researchers. We have group communication researchers, risk and crisis communication researchers, social media areas of emphasis for faculty, and interpersonal communication and behavior. So for instance, bullying behaviors and how that works alongside interpersonal communication. Moving on to the film and mass media area, we have film, journalism, and radio television. Some examples of our faculty research in that area include international journalism. really cool. Mass media in Africa. We have several faculty who do work surrounding Africa from across our multiple areas. So if that's of interest to you, we do have faculty who focus on that. Mobile technologies, again, social media, media use and effects. So for example, we have a research faculty who studies binge watching Netflix, for instance. So really interesting stuff there. And then of course we have media law and privacy, which right now with social media and everything going on, if you've been following along with that, is more important than it has ever been before. So that's just a huge area for exploration right now. And then finally, for our games and interactive media, we have web and social platforms, video games, interactive experiences. Essentially, our faculty study art, storytelling, design, and technology, the mix of those things. And so they ask questions like, how does technology create new authoring environments? And how does game development teams work? And so we'll also hear from faculty in that area. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce our first faculty member so he can share with us his expertise and his experiences with the Honors Undergraduate Thesis program. And so please welcome Dr. Harry Weger from the communication area.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hey.
I'm pretty excited. I just made my appointment to get vaccinated. So maybe pretty soon we'll all be doing this in person instead of in Zoom land from now on. I'm doing my first undergraduate thesis with a student via Zoom. And I like just meeting my office a lot better, but I guess I've directed about 7 or 8 undergraduate thesis projects now with our students. I really enjoy working with students either as part of a project I'm working on or having them follow their own ideas and working on a project that they come up with. And I really enjoyed doing that so far. I've worked on my areas of, I have kind of a weird split personality for my research, because in one area I do research in close relationships. So right now I'm working with a student looking at how during the quarantine and pandemic, students have, people in romantic couples have been able to keep their relationships kind of fresh and moving forward based on a theory called self-expansion theory, which just says that people are happier in relationships when they engage in activities that are stimulating and fun instead of just, the same old sitting around watching Netflix or whatever. And that was a little bit harder to do during the pandemic because everything was closed. So what she is interested in looking at is whether partners who have found strategies for finding new and fun activities did better in their relationship throughout the pandemic than couples who were unable to do that. And then also looking at the strategies that they came up with, just to look and see what is it they were doing that was sort of fun and interesting. I had, last year I had a student who was interested in how communication patterns in families influence the students' readiness for college in some ways, because there's theories about interaction in families that says that certain kinds of family interaction patterns result in children who are a little bit better at talking to teachers, for example. So if you're afraid of authority and never question authority, you may not want to talk to your instructors in the same way as you would if you had a family climate where you were allowed to negotiate rules and those sorts of things. And so students who are able to talk to their faculty members ought to be able to do better in college than students who don't. And that's what we found. We found that the students came from what are called conversation-oriented families, felt more efficacious in talking to their faculty members. They had higher grade point averages. They participated more in different activities on campus and stuff like that. And then my other area of research is political communication. I'm really interested in nonverbal communication in how politicians present themselves, especially in televised debates. And so I had a student who wasn't really interested in nonverbal behavior, but what she was interested in actually kind of merged my two areas of interest, because she was interested in the relationships between presidents, and so far their spouses have all been first ladies, but that might change soon. And so what she did is she took 6 different presidents and kind of put together the letters that the presidents and their spouses wrote each other, correspondence, and then analyzed the ways that these couples who, there's only been 45 of them, 46 of them, how they've been able to manage the relationship with being in such a public area, and also how the wives kind of helped shape policy in a lot of ways, especially early on, because a lot of the first ladies really, until I don't know, probably Eleanor Roosevelt, really weren't public figures. They didn't speak in public much or any of that sort of thing. So any of the influence they had was through their husband. So she looked at the letters that they wrote and how some of the things that the first ladies wrote in their letters helped shape public policy sort of behind the scenes. It was a really interesting project. So, and I've got someone right now who's interested in looking at handshakes, how people shake hands, and when they shake hands in public, because presidents are always shaking hands in public, and people's perceptions of those handshakes and stuff. So those are the kinds of things I've done. I'm really interested in anything that's related to communication in families and in politics. And then we have a whole bunch of faculty members who are also interested in all sorts of interesting things. We have a bunch of faculty members who are really interested in intercultural communication and interracial communication. We have a bunch of faculty members who are really interested in women's issues and how that plays out in public communication. And I can tell you that most of the faculty members in the communication area are really eager and interested in working with undergraduates on projects, because it's one of the reasons why we're here. We get to combine our interest in working with young scholars with our interest in doing research. So I really want to encourage you, don't be afraid to talk to a faculty member. If you're interested in something they talk about in class, they say they're doing some research, or even if they're not doing research in that area, just after class, or once we get back, once we're in the after times, right? So you can actually see us. But I guess in your Zoom meetings or email, just say, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing, and I have sort of this idea, or I want to work with you, and is there room for me? And 99 times out of 100, the faculty member will be interested in talking to you. So please get involved. I think you'll have an enjoyable and very rewarding experience doing that.
Thank you so much, Harry. I have a study I'd like to propose with you and the students moving forward into the after times. I feel like now, after being on Zoom for so long, that when we see each other in person, we're gonna all go like this and wave our hands like bye or hi. In any event, thank you so much for sharing. If you all have any questions for Dr. Uyghur, please do feel free to reach out to him or reach out to me. Or Rebecca or Padmini for that contact information. We'll save the questions for later or in the chat, because we have our next faculty guest here representing film, journalism, and radio television areas, Dr. Will Canale. Welcome, Dr. Canale. Please share your research and all of the great things that faculty are doing in those programs.
Sure. No, I appreciate having the time, and I'd like to echo what Dr. Uyghur was saying. I think the most important takeaway point from all of this is that there are people who would like to work with you on the ideas that are of most interest to you. And so if you're playing around with some kind of topic area and it's been of interest to you over time, maybe it's not something you've actually studied heavily, maybe you had one course and it kind of sparked an idea in your mind. This is the time when you might want to take advantage of the opportunity to dig more deeply into that topic area and find a faculty member who has similar interests. And you don't have to have it all worked out in detail when you first initially talk to a faculty member. We often have a situation where a student comes in and says, I'm interested in this topic. I'm not sure where it would go, but what do you think? And that's the beginning of finding a pathway to a research project. I do have a couple of little quick slides here that aren't really interesting to look at, but they keep me on task. So I'm going to see if Dr. Dodd has allowed me to share. And it looks like I can share. Awesome. So I wanted to just start with a couple that I have been involved in. Now, I haven't supervised the undergraduate honors thesis as of yet, but I have been involved in a couple. And the recent ones, these two that I have here are interesting in the sense that they show the diversity of perspectives that somebody might go in. Sometimes we talk about a research project, and as Dr. Uyghur was just talking about how, trying to identify, look through content and look for patterns in content and things like this. But it can go beyond that. We had a student who was in our RTV area who was really interested in doing some kind of documentary and wanted to learn more about female entrepreneurs. So she presented sort of a general idea to Professor Kevin Smith and said, these are the kinds of things I'd like to work on. Are you willing to work on this with me? And he thought it was a great topic and something that he would be interested in working with her on. And so she went through the process of developing a short documentary focusing on several female entrepreneurs in the Orlando area. It turned out to be a very interesting project. Another student came up not that long ago who was interested in radio. That was her primary area of interest, but she wasn't sure exactly what she wanted to study within it. After more conversation with a few different faculty, she ended up working with Dr. Reuben King on looking at the relationship between advertising and music programming within a radio company, and learned quite a bit from her experience in interviewing, talking with people in these different businesses, and also networking as a result of that as well. And so she really came up with something that ended up being personally interesting to her, but also something that adds a little extra information to our understanding of the way some of these businesses work. So, and of course, all of these projects end up in the library so that other people can benefit from them as well. Those are just two recent ones, but there are lots of different kinds of topics that the faculty who are in the film and mass media area are interested in. Dr. Brown is very focused on new media and journalism, or new media and education. So obviously new media, and then applying it in these different ways. So an example would be, one of the things he studied was how social media might be used within the classroom, and to the extent to which it's helpful, and what are students' perceptions of the effectiveness of it. So that's the kind of thing where you might even look at your own learning experiences and say, boy, I really benefit from one thing, but I didn't like this other experience. Maybe I can learn more about it. We can do some research on it, particularly if education is an interest in yours. Similar kind of thing with journalism. He's studied the way in which journalists use Twitter and other social media to spread their ideas about different stories that they're working on, what kind of content's in those social media messages, and how they relate to the stories themselves once they're published. We've got Dr. Voss, who's very involved in journalism history. She's also involved in women in media, so she kind of ties those two ideas together. And if you're somebody who's interested in kind of learning more about the role of women in pushing journalism and media in different directions, the roles they've played in media companies, she might be someone you want to talk to. Dr. Cole is involved with media and the environment. So she's done studies that relate to how the way in which people are, that is media companies and journalists are presenting different kinds of environmental issues affects the way the public perceives them. So sometimes just the language that's used in the news stories we see affects the way we think our government should act toward some of these or act on some of these environmental crises we might be facing. So if you have a slight interest in environment and media, Dr. Cole might be somebody you'd be interested in talking to. Dr. Collins is involved in studying international media. So he's done some research in Africa, several countries there, also down in South America. And so he's interested in what kinds of media are being presented there, what's the journalism like, lots of different perspectives on media across these boundaries that we have. Entertainment media and effects can be looked at either through Dr. Rubin King's studies. She's recently finished a book on binge watching. That's something I think that everybody on this Zoom can probably relate to in one way or another. She's interested in the way in which we engage with entertainment media. Sometimes we're involved in watching media that could be particularly off-putting sometimes, and she has studied the ideas of disgust response to media. And so she'd be somebody that you might be interested in contacting if you're interested in entertainment media. Social media is an area that several people have done studies on. Dr. Voss has. I've done some work with social media effects, particularly related to body image. And so there are several people, if you have an interest in social media and you want to dig further and learn more and do some research around it, there are several people who can be contacted relating to that. I've also done some work with streaming audio. Dr. Rubin King is focused on streaming video. Again, if you think about what your environment is like, what kinds of things you're engaged with in terms of your own media experiences, you might come up with some ideas that are places where we can dig in and start to learn more and sort of generate some new knowledge about those topics. So that's just a quick overview. Obviously, I'm throwing little bits and ideas at you, but the idea is to get you thinking about the things that might be of interest to you and let you understand that we've got a wide range of interests that are represented on the faculty. And all it takes then is to sort of find a foothold, find somebody to just do a Zoom with and just have a little more discussion about that topic and you'll have an opportunity to do that. And we're all available. You just have to look up our emails on the website, and I'm sure Ms. Morales or Dr. Dodd or others will be happy to put you in touch with somebody if it looks like there's a connection that can be made. So we're just really excited to work with you on these projects. So I hope that some of you are able to do that in the near future.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Canali. I know that our next guest is just getting out of class at 3:20, so he might be joining us any moment. But I'd really love if, thanks for sharing that link. If you didn't notice, Rebecca just shared the link to faculty bios. And so that's where you can look at faculty research interests. And I believe some faculty have been updating their profiles. So they might even have some more current information about projects that they're working on right now. And so given that Peter Smith has not arrived just yet, I'd like to open it up. If you have any questions thank you, Dr. Uyghur, for still hanging out, or for Dr. Canali about their experiences with the Honors Undergraduate Thesis, how were they approached, specific research topics within those areas. Any questions?
How would when should we have our faculty advisors decided on for this thesis?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question. I don't know if anyone else.
She was asking when they should have a faculty advisor signed on to their thesis. So, like, in other words, what does the time frame look like for progressing through this process?
I'll take that question. From my office's perspective, You need somebody to be on your team essentially by the time you're registering for the course, right? So say you're registering for summer, right? You want to start a thesis in the summer. You know, hopefully from my presentation today, that you have to apply just to know if you qualify for the program by April 16th. But you have until the end of the semester, until May, to let us know who you're working with. So you have some time there, right? You have until early May, because the summer term starts like the first the first week of May or something like that. So you really have until right before any semester starts to identify a faculty member to work with. I don't really recommend waiting until the very last minute to find somebody, obviously, because the earlier you identify somebody, the more conversations you can have with that person about your interests and their interests and how they align and that sort of a thing. But sometimes it takes you a little bit of time to, maybe you've talked to somebody and then they say, no, I can't really work with you, and then they say, but I recommend you work with my colleague so and so, right? Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for you to find that person to work with. So definitely start as soon as possible, but just know that you have until right before the semester starts to tell us, yes, this is who I'm working with, because then that gives us time to create your course, to enroll you in the course, and then it appears on your schedule in My UCF by the first week of the semester. And I know many of you, at least in the spring and the fall, need to verify academic activity. So it's there for your faculty member to be able to do that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'll just share my own research, and also I'll just share a little bit about those substitutions for Directed Readings 1, since that's a project I worked on getting approved alongside Padmini and our faculty. So my background is advertising public relations. I'm in the communication area with Dr. Uyghur, and my research focuses on activism and advocacy, but particularly as related to corporate engagement in controversial social political issues. So for instance, I guess I can say, like, raise your hand of those of you I can see. We all maybe saw corporations engaging in supportive communication surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement. Anyone want to speak to that? Like, did you feel that when the companies were engaging, did it feel authentic to you? What did anybody just want to share a feeling about it? That's okay. It's my research, so I was just hoping y'all could solve it for me. So I look at things like what are, everything from what are the outcomes for organizations if, for instance, their stakeholder groups and audiences believe that communication is inauthentic. It has negative. Well, I'll tell you what the research finds. It has negative impacts on the companies themselves. But more interestingly to me, and my research has progressed in this area across dozens of issues and probably like hundreds of companies by this point. More interesting to me is what the impact that this increased corporate engagement in these controversial social political issues that were traditionally reserved for sort of politicians and government, what is the impact on the issues themselves? And so a recent study completed with a student that I advised looked at how voting behaviors were impacted during the midterm elections by the release of Nike's, it was around the time that Nike released the Colin Kaepernick ad, Believe in Something, and that was Colin Kaepernick is a controversial figure at the time, and Nike's adoption of him was controversial for that campaign. It also was at the time that Dick's Sporting Goods had decided to remove assault rifles and different bump stocks, etc., in response to Parkland, and so that was also a really controversial move by the company because because they were known, Dick's and Walmart both sort of self-regulated because they were known for selling these guns. And so communicating about that and navigating those sorts of impacts on society and outcomes for the companies is really the focus of my research. If that's of interest to you, please do contact me. And then to speak just a little bit to, which I wanted to speak to anyway, to speak just a little bit to the substitution for directed readings. And please, Padmini, cut me off if I say something incorrectly. But the courses that were listed are research methods courses. And I've seen that I'm happy to see at least a couple students who are currently taking research methods, mass media research methods course with me. And what we developed for these, I suppose they're being termed as sort of creative projects or creative formats for the thesis, as opposed to the traditional thesis option, is these alternative formats where you might substitute your directed readings one with the work that you've completed in one of those research methods courses. So students in my current research methods course are creating research proposals for real world clients. And so for instance, they might substitute their directed readings one with that work that they've completed in MMC 3420 in the research methods course. They might substitute that for that directed readings one. And then for the honors thesis credits, they would then, for instance, create or execute the research, because this is just a proposal. Given COVID circumstances, it's a little more difficult to actually execute some research, but they might execute that research and then make recommendations for a social media campaign, for instance. And that proposal could then be, or that campaign could then be presented to the client that they're proposing to do the research on behalf of, and then executing, and then they can make those recommendations to a real world client. And I really do think that that speaks to the real edge that our honors undergraduate thesis opportunity provides in terms of career options and the levels of experience and competitiveness on the career market. Anything to add to that, Padmini? I'm using my personal example, but there are examples across each of the areas in Nicholson.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that really the fact that those courses got approved as substitutes really opens up a lot of avenues for Nicholson students, right? Because they can shave off a whole semester in terms of classes that they can take and use those credits. First of all, you do have to have a proposal ready to go to enter directly into thesis, but then you can absolutely develop a creative product and develop that and write what you were trying to do, and you can use that for anything that comes after. So there are so many things you can do using that template. You know, the sky's the limit. So absolutely, and feel free to approach Dr. Dodd or my office to ask, okay, here's what I'm thinking, you know, is this an acceptable path for me? And we'll absolutely, you know, direct you and guide you to say, yes, you can do this, or no, you know, just adjust the course a little bit.
Excellent. Well, thank you for adding that. And that's really, I guess Peter must be running behind, and so we don't have someone from Games and Interactive Media here. I did give you the broad overview, but I'll just repeat it again. They focus on mixed art, storytelling, design, and technology, and they ask questions such as, you know, how does technology create these new environments for creation of content? How do game development teams work together? Questions of that nature, and so I think those are really interesting areas to pursue. And if you're a student in that area, your faculty can definitely advise you on some ongoing projects or areas of research that you might want to pursue. And with that, I will turn over to Padmini, open up for questions, allow Rebecca to answer questions about credit hours, et cetera. So I really hope you all will engage in these opportunities and experiences, because they do make the difference and set you apart once you leave UCF.
I don't have anything else to add. Maybe I think Rebecca can add a few things about credit hours. You were talking about restricted electives. Rebecca, I think that's valuable information for the students to have.
Absolutely. So within the School of Communication Media, students can earn restricted elective credit in all of our majors. So regardless of your major, whether you're a film major, a comm major, an ad PR major, there is a place for the courses that you take in readings and thesis, and they are applied directly to major specific requirements. So that's really important that I stress that. In fact, in some of our majors, like in human communication, you're required to do a high impact learning course. And so this absolutely is considered one of those experiences. So it is a requirement of your major. So the idea is that you're pursuing honors research and you're working on your thesis, but you're also earning credit that you would have just used in a different course anyway. So you're not extending your time at UCF. You're not taking extra courses that you don't need. So if you're wondering where it will count, in almost every instance, it counts directly in your restricted elective category. And when you do an advising appointment with us, and you should be doing that soon, because you can see the schedule for summer and fall and spring, you'll be able to register beginning late March, early April. We would want to kind of talk to you about how you could fit those courses in. So I'm going to put in the chat also just a way to email or call us, so you can schedule an appointment if you wanted to talk more about your specific degree requirements. Are there any questions specifically about credit hours or course requirements that I might be able to answer in general? I think I addressed some of them in the chat, maybe privately and maybe to the whole group, but I'd be happy to answer those. I think we have a little bit more time. You've been so great hanging in there. We had a really big group, 80 participants, which is wonderful. So thanks for hanging in there.
I do see that Peter was able to join us. Peter, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Peter. We're just sort of finishing up, and so I would just really love it if you could give us, an overview of your research and the games and interactive media faculty research, and where students might want to get involved for the honors undergraduate thesis option in that area.
Yeah, so our faculty is really excited about working with people for the undergraduate honors in the major work. The things that I'm working on mostly tend to be games related to healthcare. So 2 major projects I'm working on. I worked with Limitless Solutions, which makes prosthetic arms for kids. They're located on main campus, but I'm down here in downtown. And my group does games that teach the kids how to use the arms. So they get these prosthetic arms, and when they flex their muscles, they'll open and close. And then they play the video games that we've made that teach them how to flex their arms in a more like finessed way. And after playing them, it unlocks, as they level up in the game, it like unlocks the next level of their arm, and they're able to do multi-gestural control. So they might learn in the video game that a small flex shoots the like small attack, and the big flex shoots the big attack, right? And then in the arm, a small flex points and a big flex opens and closes, and a medium one might do an okay sign or something like that. And so we work primarily undergraduate students are doing all of the game development that we do for that. Another project that I work on is with UCF Restores, which is a group that is an active like clinic for therapy for people who have PTS. So it might be soldiers or civilians that went through some sort of traumatic event, and we build a virtual reality simulation of those events that puts them into that virtual reality experience, and the therapist is able to rebuild the scenario, and we play it through, and the patient actually, like, we're tracking their heart rate and their galvanic skin response, and able to actually have a therapist give them therapy while putting them back in that situation. I want to point out that the system that we build doesn't do the therapy, that an actual therapist does the therapy, but we have them kind of being monitored in that. And again, the development there was all done with undergraduate students. I have an undergraduate and a major student now who's really interested in art styles and how they're kind of impacting development, and if they match well, and kind of if the art styles that are if the art style that's appropriate is applied to a game, if that helps with kind of how it sells as well too. So he's got a straight survey happening there. I think that the really cool opportunity here is that if you're interested in doing something with interesting hardware, or something that you didn't think you would have access to, like maybe you're like, well, I would need 50 cameras. Like, we have a closet with 50 cameras in it. We can do that. I need eye tracking. We got that, right? I need like virtual reality on a backpack so people can move around each other with these virtual reality devices. We have that. And you can use it for these kind of projects, right? So if there's anything there that sounded interesting, there are faculty members that would be more than happy to work with you in those kind of projects. And I personally would be happy to work with anyone on anything related to video games. Other faculty members, Edwin Lohmeyer and Matthew Mosher, both do kind of these interactive sculpture type work. So if you're thinking about, well, what could I do with Arduinos or any kind of like installation pieces, that's the kind of stuff that they do. Maria Harrington is doing a lot of AR, VR work, especially around nature. So she has a VR and AR simulation of the Arboretum set up, and I know she'd be more than happy to have students using that to do different kinds of studies. And John Murray is also doing a lot of VR and AR kind of work. So if you have interest in those kind of areas, those are the faculty you'd want to approach. I think like one of the things students kind of struggle with sometimes is that first approach to a faculty member. I'll say most of our faculty are going to be very happy about being approached to work on honors in the major. If they're not going to try to shut you down on it. They will try to help you find the right person to work with. In fact, if they're doing what's really right for the students, they would talk to you about what you're interested in, then help you find the right faculty member anyway. If it's them, great. And if not, then they'll help you find the right person. And I think you do have to have a committee. So that person may not be the lead, but they'll probably still be on there. I wouldn't be scared to approach any faculty member about doing one of these projects. And that goes for the games and interactive media, and I'm assuming all the other majors as well. Melissa, does that cover what you wanted? Or?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I actually have a question. Who do I contact in order to play with all the toys and the video cameras and the pieces?
So
where do I go with that?
Jordan Lipscomb's in the lab all the time. So if he's not there, his email address is up on a board by it. So I know he's not there right now because like I think he's right now he's there, but he's not there every day because of COVID. But if you come in and see that, you could contact him, and I'm sure he'd give you any kind of tour and help you use any equipment. And I know if y'all have any specific projects outside of game and interactive media, that would, so I would bet eye tracking might be helpful for some of the journalism students and things that are doing like things that are on the internet and you want to see where they're looking. So if it's a blog, are they actually paying attention to the post and that kind of thing, or a news article? I don't want to talk too much about what happens in those majors because I don't do that work. So please, if I just offended your entire field, I apologize. But yeah, we can get people in there and use the equipment for sure. And that's why it's there. We really want it to get used. So.
Excellent. I will leave it to Padmini or Rebecca or we still have all three of our areas represented here. So if any of the students have any questions or research ideas or need to get that contact information from Peter so you can go play with some cool toys, please jump in.
Yeah, you're welcome to email me too. It's just, I'll put my email in the chat here.
So are there any questions before we close the meeting today? Any questions we have not addressed? And of course, if there's anything that comes to you after this information session, feel free to contact us. I'll put my office's email there. It's honorsresearch@ucf.edu. It's really easy. But yeah, if there's anything before we log off today, I'm happy to answer that. And any of the faculty who are here, or Ms. Morales as well. Anything that's, any burning questions this afternoon?
Are there any parameters on the length of the thesis paper or the project? I mean, I'm sure even if you got the world's best one-page thesis, it's not going to be enough. So I mean, I'm sure, but I doubt they're specific, but are there sort of parameters in terms of that?
So the Burnett Honors College itself does not set a length, does not have a length requirement. You're right that one page is probably not going to pass muster. Just so you know, the proposal, right, which is sort of the groundwork for the thesis, there's a 5-page minimum. So we're kind of expecting the thesis to be longer than that. And the expectation is that the thesis will be somewhat longer and more substantial than a term paper, right, in your discipline. As far as length, quality, and really just the conventions of your discipline are concerned, all of that, it's the faculty committee that are the judges of that. We do not police what goes into the thesis. There have been cases, I will say, just generally speaking, there have been cases where things have been submitted that we did not judge were met, honors standards. And we do reserve the right to withhold the honors mention in those cases. And that has happened. So, but in 99.9% of cases, we leave that judgment to the faculty. And so the faculty are the sort of the gatekeepers, right? And that's both your thesis chair and faculty member and the HUT liaison, who also signs off on the final product. Not that they're reading the entire thing, but they're, sort of, again, gatekeeper function. So it's mostly within your discipline, because something that is acceptable, say in physics, is going to look very different than something that is acceptable in history, very different than something in film, right? And a paper, a critical analysis, such as what I was discussing before, based on a creative project, is going to look very different than a traditional thesis, both in terms of length and in terms of content. So there are many, many differences there. And so we really don't dictate the content, the length, or anything like that. There are disciplinary conventions there that we trust the faculty to apply, to know, and to be the guardians of.
With that said, my particular problem is not writing too little, but writing too much. So, I write a lot and then get rid of the crap, and hopefully anyway. Traditionally, would you, some sort of, usually they're around or very off, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to, I will all pinky swear to not hold you to the number you're about to hopefully give us. Just trying to get an idea of, what we're looking at in terms of length of paper or length of thesis paper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean,
oh, Melissa, you were about to say something?
I just think it's very specific to each, student and each faculty member and each discipline. But I can tell you, if you were doing a traditional honors thesis with me, that would be somewhere around 50 pages.
And I would recommend, I showed the map of all where the theses are being downloaded. You can actually go to that. It's stars.ucf.edu, no, maybe library.stars.ucf.edu or something like that. You can actually go to that website and you can search by discipline. So I would really recommend that you search for some theses in your particular major and look what students have been doing in that major, so what are the expectations there, both in terms of length and in terms of format. We recommend that all students do that as well, especially when it comes time for format review, which has just started, and we get all kinds of questions. We say, you know what, go take a look at that and you'll get a really good idea of what it should look like. And that will give you a good starting point, because I'm sure your faculty committee does not want to read, like, say, 150 pages, right? They will say, okay, you really need to trim that down, right? Go trim that down, be more concise, because that's part of quality and that's part of being a scholar, right? Is knowing how to say what's really important, right? And so again, that's a conversation to be had with your faculty committee.
I would also just, Stuart, I'm just guessing by this microphone that you might be in the film and mass media or radio television program. And
I'm a college professor, and rather than yell loud enough for that microphone, I can speak softly here when I lecture for 4 hours at a time. Sure. So I'm a professor at Valencia.
Oh, okay, okay.
I had a quick question. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Stuart was asking, and Padmini gave a nice segue: quality versus quantity. And I'm going to ask, because not that I, should I go down this road? Not that I anticipate having my thesis not meet the requirements, but you did mention if a decision was made to not designate something with honors, would the student still get the credits? And I don't know if they're hand in hand, the honor designation versus still getting the actual credit for the work, despite them feeling that the material did not suffice for the program. If I'm making sense how I'm asking that, because I can hear his concern about, is there going to be quality in the quantity of pages we write? And let's just say on the flip side of that, someone's not writing 100 pages, but whatever they thought was so grandiose and awesome, when it was reviewed, it was like, you kind of missed the mark, so we're not going to designate this with honors. Would the student still get credits, the 6 credits for the work done? Yeah,
no, absolutely. If something does not meet honors standards, absolutely, the credit for the course still applies. And I want to reassure everybody here that 99.99999% of our students do get the honors designation if they finish the thesis, okay? The faculty, by and large, do a really good job of making sure that it meets the requirements, that it is honors quality and all that stuff. So I just really have to say that caveat, because it has happened and it can happen. But really, if you're working closely with your committee and you are producing good work, there is really no good reason for you not to receive the honors mention. The case where the student may not graduate with honors after enrolling in the program, after taking the course, and something that unfortunately is not as uncommon, is for a student to get almost to the end, maybe halfway through the thesis semester, and decide they're not going to complete the thesis. For whatever reason. That may be because they have too much on their plate. That may be sometimes they get into graduate school and they decide, you know what, I reached my goal. This is too much stress. And I'm going to do myself a favor and not do the defense and all that other stuff that comes with having a thesis. And I'm just going to coast to the finish. Sometimes that happens too. So in that case, sometimes the student will withdraw from the course. Sometimes the student will say, okay, I'm not going to do the honors part of it, which involves, as I said, a format review, a defense, submitting to STARS, and that sort of a thing. But I will finish this as just a regular term paper. In all of those cases, when you don't finish it as a thesis, you still get the credit for the course because you are registered for a course. As long as you and your faculty member agree on what the product should look like and you meet that requirement, you meet their expectations, and they say, okay, this is a B paper or something like that, you get that course for that grade. We just don't give you the honors designation on your diploma or your transcript. That's the difference there.
And I do have a follow-up question to that, because something else you said. No, again, I think and I'm a transfer student from Seminole. So, and well, let me do this. So, okay, I'm a transfer student from Seminole. I might not look it, but I'm 50 years old and I have adult children, one right now in South Korea teaching English. So there's a lot, and I work from home. I've been working from home since the pandemic started. So there's a lot that's on my plate. So generally my concern, it's always about understanding what it's going to take to build what my foundation needs to be before I engage in anything, because I'm a person that wants to see things to fruition.
That's
Having
great.
said all that, and still trying to kind of find my way with the symmetry of the classes that I'm taking right now. And I'm not an online learner, I'm a classroom learner. Given my age, I'm old school. So I'm still getting acclimated to this whole environment of everything being virtual. So my concern is, for example, I graduated magna cum laude. I'm fighting like hell to keep my GPA at what I consider to be, the standards that, if for any reason after qualifying, let's say something happened and the GPA fell a point or two below the qualified GPA, does that not affect the student already en route to completing the thesis and all of that? If that makes sense how I'm asking?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there is an exit GPA requirement, which is 3.2. And so you have to have a 3.4 to get into the program, and you have to get you have to have a 3.2 GPA to exit, meaning to graduate from the Burnett Honors College. And that applies to all Burnett Honors College students, meaning the Honors Undergraduate Thesis program, the University Honors program. So there's a little bit of leeway there, right? There's 0.2, and the fact that there is that leeway means that most students, again, the majority of our students graduate without any trouble whatsoever. If you have a really rough semester, that might, you might not meet that criterion, and that's unfortunate, but I have not seen, that happen very often.
Thank you for that.
The GPA requirement, I think you said earlier, is either for your UCF GPA or your overall GPA. Did I understand that correct? Whichever is higher.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, cool.
So as a transfer student, Karine, thank you for that, for reminding us of that, Stuart. As a transfer student, Karine, we look at both GPAs, both at your entry and at exit. And if either of those GPAs, your UCF GPA or your overall GPA meets the exit GPA or entrance GPA, you're good.
And I'll just follow up on that, Karine. I can't speak to your overall GPA and maintaining that while participating in the Honors Undergraduate Thesis opportunity, but I will tell you that I don't know of any faculty who would allow their student to, move forward with the submission of a product that wasn't going to pass, through the honors committee. Like, your faculty member should know. Your faculty member wants you to succeed. They're going to work closely with you to make sure that you succeed. Of course, there's a lot of investment on your end, as it's clear that you realize. But it would, I would never allow a student to submit something that I knew wouldn't pass muster, wouldn't pass the test.
Yeah, I think the key, when we see students stumble, it's usually because they have allowed that communication with their thesis chair to lapse at some point. And if you are working closely with your thesis chair, right, if you're checking in regularly, even to say, you know what, I have a lot on my plate these next couple of weeks, I have papers due, I have midterms and this and that, this is going to have to take a back seat for the next couple of weeks, that's okay, right? And that's the really neat thing with the program, is you don't have to be in a course every week at a certain time. You can kind of tailor this around your schedule, right? Which can also be a stumbling block for others, because then they put it off. But it's really flexible. But as long as you're keeping the communication lines open with your thesis chair, as long as you're working with them and you are making sure they receive regularly updates, they receive something from you, some writing. I've read this is what I think, this is the progress I've made, and this and that. They can judge your progress, they can sort of steer your course, right? They can course correct whenever necessary. They will make sure that you succeed, right? The problems arise when students disappear, stop communicating, and then 3 weeks before the semester ends, right, they're supposed to submit a proposal. They're supposed to submit something to the external editor for format review. They're supposed to submit a thesis, and they start panicking. They try to write a thesis in 48 hours. Not going to happen. You cannot write something in 48 hours and expect it to meet the standards, right? That's where the problems arise. And so my advice is always communicate with your thesis advisor. Make sure they know what you're doing, where you're at, what struggles you're having. It's okay to struggle, and they are there to help you, right? You're not expected to be at the top of your field just yet. You are a budding scholar. They're there to help you get there, right? And at the end of the day, when you get to your defense, you will be that person who's confident and who's able to say, this is what I did, right? This is the question I approached. This is the project I put together. And you will be able to proudly and confidently be able to present to them and walk away knowing that this is something that you did. But it's not easy, for sure. But definitely staying in touch with your thesis chair is key, and they're not going to let you fail unless you ghost them.
Yeah. So I wanted to point out, I don't have any statistics to back this up, so take it with a grain of salt. But once you get into kind of your senior year, most of your classes become very related to your degree. And so you start getting into things that you're very interested in. And, maybe some majors are a lot harder in their senior year. But my guess is that if you have the GPA going into your senior year, that you're going to be able to maintain it because you're going to have a lot more interest in those classes. And doing the honors in the major is probably going to increase your interest in your other classes as well. And it might even be something that really shows you what you want to be doing when you graduate, right? So I wouldn't get super nervous about it taking the time away and then making it so that your grades go down. I would think of it more as like, this is going to be the thing that helps culminate the experience that I'm doing in my major. And what I think I heard said was, if your GPA starts going down and you have to kind of like pull the ripcord on the honors in the major, the classes still count that you took before. So it wouldn't be a waste of your time, and you'll probably still have some research that came out of it. It just might not be a graduate with honors at the end.
Okay, so the work will still, be for something. It won't be for naught. But I wanted to, again, follow up with another question. I'm a person, I think, 10 steps down the road, and sometimes I let things down the road then change how I even pursue it. So I'm learning right now in research, obviously, your research thesis, your question is what designs the method of your investigation and not the other way around. And I'm already telling myself, yeah, this is something I'm interested in, but I don't see how I'm going to collect the data. I don't see how that's going to work. So now I'm just going to dispel that. So I guess what I'm asking is, what's the assurance of the help we're going to get in garnering resources? For example, one of the things I thought about, and I'm sure I'm not the only person on this call, that as we went through this entire thing, we started to kind of have all these little idea bombs go off. And I thought cultural communication biases in the workplace. And then I'm like, well, how would I even get that data? So, coming back to this, if I'm aligned with a chair faculty member that's assisting me with this, how would we even go about, or where, I'm worried about where am I going to get the access to get that information to conduct a study?
I can help you with that.
Oh, okay.
It just depends on what you're interested in. We just had a graduate student do her thesis looking at perceptions of natural hair in the workplace. And so she and a couple of friends just took pictures, and they just did their hair in different ways. And then did an experiment where she, using a survey program that allows you to project a picture on the screen and then have people respond to that picture, was just able to ask people like, does this look professional? Is this what you expect to see in the workplace, and that kind of stuff. And we specifically surveyed people who were not students because we wanted people who actually work in real workplaces to be the people making judgments about that. I did a similar thing with a student who was just interested in different styles of women's clothing and perceptions of whether or not those styles were professional. And so we actually got our images off of Macy's website, where they had photographs of different work outfits. So we showed those people who were actually working. And so you could do it that way. You could also interview people in the workplace and ask them their perceptions, and working with the faculty member, you'll be able to work out, what the methodology will be and where you can get your data. So the good news is that you'll be working with people who have done a lot of research and have a lot of pretty good ideas about where they can get data. So you don't have to like just dream up everything new for the first time. There are a lot of established methodologies for getting data, and that unless you want something really odd where there's just a small segment of people, you should be fine in gathering data. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add to that your faculty, I mean, for me, and I think most faculty, we take seriously our role in mentorship of helping you develop the research question, helping you identify the best method to answer that question, and that's what we're here for. That's why we're here. And so I think that you'll have, as long as you engage as is important, I think your faculty will engage as well. And you do, and you already have a sort of broad topic, which is, so already I can think of a few faculty that you could reach out to, and Dr. Weger is here too. So, I mean, yeah.
When you say think of, like, you'll hit me up later, like, like, let me know. Because I it was one of 3 things I thought about. And as the conversation and the call progressed, I was like, I really would love to do that, because as an African-American female in a workplace that is not predominantly minority, that's one of the things I've come across. And even in taking these communication classes, I've learned how much people lack really the art of communication. And I even went and said, maybe this is a class that should be taught in high school. And that was a whole nother research theory. But I said it would be something that I would want to explore either in my current workplace or, wherever I can get that information, because I really feel that there is a foundation there as far as how people react or interact, even like on performance evaluation observations, how people are perceived when they receive constructive criticism, whether they're a minority or not. You can say the same exact thing and the messaging is completely received differently or delivered differently. So it's something that I've always wanted to kind of look into, but I was like, I don't know where to go. So definitely knowing that there'll be somebody to help me construct that and, have me go forward and fact find and gather data and see what the outcome is, that's got my interest more peaked than before, when it was like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? And how is this going to affect my grade and my GPA?
Green, if it's all right with you, I will send you an email. I can think of 3 people
Yes,
right
sir.
off the top of my head who are right in that area that would be interested in your ideas, if that's all right with you.
I would love to. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, so I think the important thing here is like reach out to faculty early, like while you're coming up with the idea. If you get to like kind of an area where you have an idea, talk to any faculty member and they'll start pushing you towards the faculty members that are doing research in that area. So, and that's not just for you, Kareen, but for everybody on the call. So, yeah.
Well, thanks everybody.
I just wanted to thank everyone for asking such great questions and sharing. I think we made some really interesting connections here. And I really do hope that you'll all consider the program and complete the eligibility form and start making those faculty connections early.
Absolutely. I'm going to so thank you, Dr. Smith, for putting the link to STARS in the chat there. So please check out those theses there, search for your discipline, take a look at what students have done, take a look at who the faculty are who have been supervising theses, so you can get an idea of who's supervising what kind of work. You know, there's all kinds of interesting facts you can glean from those theses. And thank you everybody for coming, students, faculty. Thank you, Rebecca, for contacting everybody and getting us all here today. It was a great session, and I think doing it virtually really enabled all of us to get in the same place. So and I hope that this is productive in terms of helping students to engage with the program, and I hope to see lots of eligibility forms. Feel free to email us at.
You just muted yourself.
Okay, here we go. Feel free to email us at honorsresearch.ucf.edu and then apply at tinyurl.com/hut. Okay, let me type this real fast. Hut apply. There we go. There. And I hope to get lots of eligibility forms. Again, no commitment just yet, just a chance for you to know that you qualify and then be on the lookout for a faculty member to work with. So,
Corrine, excuse me, but Corrine, for your research, there's a movie term that we use. It's called a Kuleshov effect. Look that up, Kuleshov. It really directs to what you were just talking about.
Okay.
It's about how what's on either side of the image affects how we perceive the image.
Okay. Kuleshov effect.
Kuleshov. Sorry for interrupting, but I just,
no, you're good. Thank you.
I just finished writing a paper on it. So it was in my brain and it really applied to what she was talking about.
Thank you.
See, that's another great resource. These other students, you know, other connections that you will make.
Okay.
We just need to have a regular undergraduate research collaboration meeting. They can just talk about their ideas and we can all, you know, capitalize.
And everybody would steal stuff from everybody else.
Well, have a great afternoon, everybody, and a great rest of the semester, and we'll reconnect soon, I'm sure. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for having this meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Dodd.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Melissa.